A man fell asleep in 1921 and didn't wake up until a year later in someone else's body in a city that doesn't exist yet. He says he watched humans colonize Mars. He says he watched that colony get wiped off the map. He says money disappeared, governments collapsed, and a new kind of human evolved, one who'd never felt fear the way we do. And he wrote all of it down a full century before any of it could be checked. So either a dying schoolteacher had the most detailed hallucination in recorded history, or he actually went there. Stick around, because the strangest part of this story isn't even the future he saw. It's the girl he left behind, and what happened when he met her again, 2,000 years later. Before we get into it, if stories like this are your thing, hitting subscribe means you won't miss the next one, and a quick like genuinely helps this channel grow. Costs you nothing, helps us a lot. Okay, let's get back to 1921. In the spring of 1921, a quiet schoolteacher in Zurich closed his eyes and didn't open them again for 2 weeks. Nobody thought much of it. People get sick. People recover. But 4 years later, the same man closed his eyes a second time and didn't open them again for a full year. When he finally did, he wasn't the same person. He'd seen something, or somewhere, and for the rest of his short life, he tried to write it down before it slipped away. This is the story of what he claimed to find on the other side of that year-long sleep. A world 2,000 years from now. His name was Paul. He taught languages, loved old philosophy, and by every account was an unremarkable, gentle man, until his body apparently disagreed with the rest of him and shut down without warning. While his mother sat beside an empty bed for 12 months, Paul says he was somewhere else entirely. A room with rose-colored light bleeding from crystal in the walls. A window looking out on hills no one back home would recognize. He assumed, reasonably, that he'd died and landed somewhere holy. He hadn't. He'd landed in a stranger's skull. The face in the mirror wasn't his. The language spoken around him wasn't his. And the date, when a doctor finally let it slip, wasn't 1921. It was 3906. 1985 years had passed in the time it took him to fall asleep. Once the panic faded, his hosts, a pair of mentors named Jorger and Stefan, gave him something almost cruelly tempting. A flat, glowing tablet that could call up the recorded history of nearly 2,000 years. Anything he wanted to know, except the century he'd just left. That one, they said, was sealed. Knowing too much about your own past, apparently, is dangerous. So instead, Paul read forward. He read that humanity would reach Mars in the 2020s, and that the colony would swell past 20 million people within a few decades, only to be wiped out by an impact event so sudden no one had time to evacuate. After that, he wrote, nobody would try colonizing another world again for a very long time. He read about a war, not a quick one, but an 80-year grind starting in the 2300s that would gut Europe and leave only the cold northern edges of the continent populated. He guessed that's why the language spoken around him sounded like English, and Norwegian had been forced into a blender. He read that the war's end didn't bring peace so much as a new kind of cage, a world government that promised unity and delivered an oligarchy. It would take 2 centuries of quiet resistance before that power finally crumbled and was handed to scientists, philosophers, and ordinary people instead. And somewhere past that point, he wrote, something stranger happened. Money simply stopped mattering. People worked 2 mandatory years of public service in their late teens, and after that, spent their lives chasing art, ideas, knowledge. Not wealth, because there was nothing left to hoard. He noted, almost bewildered, that the people of the 40th century seemed to walk around with the easy, unworried calm of children who had never once questioned whether they'd be fed tomorrow. Here the story stops being about the future and starts being about something he couldn't explain, even to himself. Before any of this happened, back in his original life, there had been a girl, Anna. The night before she married someone else, she and Paul had climbed a hill together, and she'd made him a promise. The next time they met, she would weave him a crown from the wildflowers growing there. She died not long after. Centuries later, wearing a stranger's body in a city that wouldn't exist for 2,000 years, Paul fell for a woman named Sylvia. One afternoon, without knowing why, she led him up a hill, picked the same kind of wildflowers, wove them into a crown, and held it out to him. He said it stopped his heart more than the time travel ever had. His friend Stefan had a theory that time doesn't move in a straight line the way people assume, and that souls keep their promises even when the people carrying them have no memory of making them. Paul never decided whether to believe it. He just wrote it down, the same way he wrote down everything else, and left the question open for whoever found the pages next. Not long after finishing his account, back in his own century and his own failing body, Paul died of tuberculosis. He was 31. His diary sat untouched for 50 years until a former student finally translated and published it, against, it's worth saying, Paul's direct instructions not to. We'll never know if he tore a hole in time or simply built the most detailed, aching dream a dying man ever had. But he asked one favor of the people who came after him, and it had nothing to do with Mars colonies or vanished oligarchies. He just wanted someone, someday, to remember the hill, the wildflowers, and the promise.